more than 20 years of watching Calgary's real estate market, I've seen every cycle and shift. And what's happening right now isn't what the headlines are fully telling you. This is your September 2025 market update, where I'm gonna break down the real data zone by zone, property types by property types, and I've put together a complete market report update for you, and the link is in the description. So let's start off with a chart we always start off and talk about the benchmark pricing. So Calgary right now has dropped a little bit in its benchmark pricing month over month and year over year, but the benchmark price in Calgary is sitting at $577,200. That is down from $582,900 as of last month, and from year over year in August, it's down from $601,000. So we definitely have seen some drops in our pricing, and that is to be expected. We have rising inventory, we have slower sales, but we still have this floor of demand that's still in the city. And so it's not like prices are falling apart and inventory is going through the roof. So we're not seeing that. But what are we seeing? Well, you can see very clearly up here that the inventory actually dropped from last month. We'll get into the exact numbers here shortly. And the number of sales actually jumped down a little bit as well. So we were at 1,989 sales compared to just over basically 2,100 last month. So it's dropped just about 100 sales month over month. So if you look at the actual benchmark prices for the different areas in the city, you can see the north is sitting at $540,000. The northwest is sitting at $635,000. The west is still the highest priced zone of the city at $707. City center's at $581, south at $577, southeast at $568. A lot of these are very similar, the south and the southeast. And then the east is $410 and $490 for the northeast. We have seen the biggest drops year over year in the northeast and the east parts of the city. Right now they're sitting at about 7.4 and 7.6% drops. The next highest that we've seen is actually up in the north at 6.6% drop year over year, where the tightest market, the one that has fared the best, is in the west. The west zone has only seen a drop of about 2.4%, very closely followed by the northwest at only 2.5% drop. So you can kind of see there's some different dichotomies in the different zones, and there's different things that are happening in the different areas. So we ended up seeing 3,478 new listings come on the market last month, in the month of August. The month before that, we saw 3,900, and the month before that was 4,200. The month before that, would have been May, was 4,800. So we've definitely seen a slowdown since the spring of new homes coming on the market. Well, what do we expect to happen? Most likely, we are gonna see it come up in this range. I can feel it. So what I can feel is I can feel the market picking up a little bit again. Every time I put out videos, I can have a sense of what people are doing in the market. And the last week, I have seen a lot of you downloading more guides, reaching out to us. It has definitely picked up. Usually this doesn't happen until kind of mid-September, but I think something is going on in the market and people are kind of jumping into the market a little bit quicker than they usually do in a fall season. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to see more listings coming on the market. We're going to see more buyer activity, potentially more sales than what we might have thought otherwise, which usually would have maybe drawn out into October, November. We're probably going to see our fall market start a little bit earlier into that September market than what we typically do. And what we're seeing number sales per month is it has been dropping. The high of May was at 2,568 for this year. And last month we saw 1,989 sales. So we've broken lower than the 2,000 mark, which we saw in February of this year because we broke over 2,100 in March. But again, we're right in the middle here. And I know I've said this before, we've talked about this before, but we're right in this middle section. And most likely we could see this kind of flat line. We might see maybe 2,100 sales again going into the fall. in one of these months. But I don't think we're going to see this shoot up like crazy, but I also don't think we're going to see this fall apart either. We just have this demand floor, this floor of demand that just kind of holding the market and what's happening here. Now, inventory. This is something that you want to follow. And the reason you want to follow this is because if inventory increases like crazy, that means we had more listings come on the market and we also had not enough sales. So there was too many properties coming on the market. If you look at other major cities across Canada, this is what we've seen happen. They have seen their inventory jump like massive amounts because there was just too many homes going, we gotta sell, we gotta get it on the market. We missed the boat, let's see if we can sell it, or we just have to sell it. And there just wasn't the demand, the number of sales keeping up for it. Now, with our demand and our number of sales, it's actually kept it in check, right? It's actually dropped from last month. We were at 61 this last month in August, and almost 7,000, 69.15 and 69.41 over June and July. So the number of inventory has dropped a little bit. So here's what could happen. If we look at other years, you can see this trend where it goes up, it goes up, it goes up into this fall season, and then it drops. So there's a really good chance we could see a 7,000 plus inventory on our market. And that is okay. It is not a flooded market. However, if you as a seller don't price your property accordingly, like you don't nail the pricing, you're probably just not going to have showings. So if you don't have showings on your home and you don't have the right activity that you're hoping to have, a lot of times it comes down to pricing and preparation. And those are the two things you can control. Because if you don't have people who are hating on your property, like they're like, I don't like this about your house, I don't like XYZ. As a seller, that's not the most wonderful thing to talk about. And here is what people don't like about your house. But the thing is, if you can't change what they don't like, well, then you have to adjust your price. And those are just some real realities of this market compared to what has happened over the last number of years. And so when we see more inventory coming on, because we could see 71, 7,200 at some point, we might even see 8,000 listings, maybe next spring. But when you see more inventory, that means as a seller, you've got to be right on the money with where your pricing is at. It really depends on your product, your location, so many factors. And we are starting to get calls now of those of you who are frustrated because you can't sell because you don't have the right advice from other agents. And so we cannot give you advice if you are listed with somebody else. So what we can do is we can listen. We really can't give you advice. But if you are thinking of changing, and as an agent, if you're thinking of making an adjustment of who is listing your property, we can definitely have those conversations. But again, we cannot give you any advice. That's how our market works. That's our fiduciary duties and whatnot. So I know a lot of agents don't play by that. I've heard of them. I've talked to agents. Like some agents will give you full-on advice of what you should do, but they cannot. They should not be doing that. And we don't like to step on toes. We like to not play in gray areas. We like to play in the non-gray areas, right? Back on to months of inventory. So what is happening with months of inventory? Well, for the city, we are seeing 3.35 months of inventory. So we are squarely strong inside the middle of a balanced market right now. And for the last number of months, we've kind of see it right in that little spot. The lowest we saw this year was in March, which would have been like roughly right around here somewhere, which would have been about 2.4. So we've come up from a 2.4 months of inventory in the city, which is basically flirting with the seller's market, right into the middle of a balanced market. We have not seen the whole city break through into a buyer's market yet. And that's some of the headlines, right? Some of the headlines are saying Calgary is strong in a buyer's market right now, which is not true. And so it's confusing, but if you know the data, what you're looking for, the information, this is what's happening is we're sitting at 3.35 months of inventory for the whole city. If we break that down based off of the zones, again, we have 30-day and 90-day. 30-day is kind of just what happened last month. 90-day gives you a little bit more bandwidth, right? It gives you a little bit more understanding of where things really are at. So if you are seeing it like it's pretty much in all of these, if the 30-day is higher than the 90-day, that means there's a chance that it's trending to a slowing down or an increasing market. Like the numbers are going up, so it's a slowing down market into a buyer's market. So the city center 30-day number is sitting at 4.05 months of inventory, where the 90-day was 3.6. So that 30-day might drag the 90-day up higher into more of a buyer's market. Hope that makes sense. East zone is 3.98 for the 30-day and 3.5 for the 30-day number. Sorry, opposite. 3.98 for the 30-day, 3.5 for the 90-day. The north zone of Calgary is sitting at 3.77 for its 30 and 3.3 for the 90-day. The northeast is the highest of both. So it's actually pretty much the same, basically at 4.8 for its 30 and 4.8 for its 90-day. So it is very stable in that, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the drops in pricing, the biggest ones in the zones, right? The northwest is still sitting at 2.83 for the 30-day and 2.48 for the 90-day. So you are still, for the northwest, the south, even the southeast and the west, like these four areas, like they're really, really close, because 2.5, which would be right around this mark here, down here is a seller's market, up here is a balanced market. So they are still flirting between that balanced and seller's market. So not every part of the city is acting the same. And so, and not even every type of property is acting the same either. Because you can see the green line here for apartments has now broken through into a buyer's market where everything else is sitting in that balanced market. That's really small. So I'm actually gonna dig into this a little bit more for you. So let's start with apartments. So apartments, they are now sitting at 4.41 months of inventory, which is up from 4.13. So they went up about 0.3 months of inventory over the last month. Townhomes, row homes, they're sitting at 3.25 months of inventory, which is up from just 3.2. So they kind of have been a little bit more steady, but again, it's definitely gone up. Semi-detached properties. This is the only one, look at this, that has gone down. It has gone further or back into really, really close, like a seller's market flirting line, right? 2.5 is what it's sitting at, and it's down from 2.9. And this is kind of interesting. We're gonna talk about this, the price ranges, what's happening in there in a minute. And then detached homes, they are up to 3.07, up from 2.99. So not a lot, like barely, just kind of the same, but right around that 3 months of inventory for detached homes. And so what I wanted to do is I want to look at the price ranges, how many sales, just because this is going to show a little bit of a story, because the semi-detached properties, so these are your like half duplexes. These are properties that are attached, like, but they're not townhomes. They don't necessarily always have condo fees, right? They're just attached properties. So because they usually have on either side, usually garages or no garages, or they're like older properties, half duplexes, things like that. So I wanted to get into that, but I wanted to show you what's happening in the whole city. So as you can see, last year to date, is the yellow, and this year to date is the number of sales based on the different price ranges for everything in the whole city. So the only ones that have actually seen an increase year over year is properties over $1 million. Everything else compared to last year has seen a drop in the number of sales, which is totally understandable because we've seen less sales than we have last year. And so when we look at the detached properties by price range, you can see that in 2024, like again, the $1 million ones is basically gone up. When everything else has less sales, homes over $1 million have gone up. And if you want to understand that more, every month we do a luxury real estate market update, and that's just the $1 million and over market. And we get into some of the details and understandings of that. But as you can see, the number of sales, like when you compare it, and I know prices have increased, so this is kind of a sliding chart, and all of these are gonna be a little bit different. But when you get into, this is the really one I wanted to show you, was the semi-detached. Because when you look at all the info I just showed you, right here, this one little price range has had more sales than last year to date. Where everything else, other than $1 million stuff, right? Even, there's not gonna be $1 million townhomes. Like even all the townhome stuff has gone down, all the apartment stuff has gone down. There's nothing really other than $500,000 to $600,000 range for semi-detached properties that has increased. This is like the one hot market for property types, price ranges across the whole city that is seeing more sales than it has easily in the last 4 years. There's a lot of reasons for that. You can get into people not wanting to buy a townhome because of condo fees, so they'll look into that product. You could be looking at detached homes, the starter stuff becoming out of reach, but properties in that price range and that product type, that could work. So you're just seeing kind of a mix. Like I did a video a couple weeks ago where it was talking about all the first starter types of properties. So your condos, your townhomes, and your starter homes. And semi-detached, it kind of falls right in the middle of all of that as a really good option with no condo fees. And I think that's the reason this little pocket of the city right now is kind of popping off, which is kind of an interesting thing. So when we look at all of the months of inventory for all the different product types, based on the price ranges, here is what we are seeing. So this is a 2.3. So I'm gonna do a super rough line there and then a line here. So this is not perfect or straight, but it's really, really close. So anything in this middle zone is going to be a balanced market. Anything down here is a seller's, anything up here is a buyer's market. Now, I don't think there's really any any price ranges that are in a seller's market other than you've got your 0 to 200, which there really isn't much. You actually have 500 to 550. You have 600 to 650. And I think those are the only ones that are sitting in a decent seller's market. So you're 5 to 550 and 6 to 650. Those are hot price ranges in the city, meaning there's a seller market there. Ones that are slower, you don't see that until you get over $2 million. The rest of the city is sitting in a balanced market. And once you hit over $2 million, that's when you start seeing kind of a different market, a different price range. And we'll get into that in the luxury market update. But it's interesting because even though we are seeing inventory higher than we have, we're seeing less sales, we're seeing benchmark prices dropping, we still are sitting in mainly a balanced market in our city. And so when you hear headlines or hear people, there's definitely going to be people commenting down here saying, we're going to see 40% drops in the city. Like, okay, well, I guess we'll wait for that. But there's definitely going to be people who are just like saying, because there's this one article that came out. Royal Bank put it out and it was a study. It was more about like new home supply, right? And what is happening is the headline says, we do not have a Canadian lack of housing problem. We have an Ontario lack of housing problem. And the housing starts in Ontario is what's dragging down the Canadian numbers. So the housing starts in Calgary are actually really decent. And they're actually almost to the point where it's like, they're almost like, it's not too high, but it's like right where it kind of needs to be in some ways. But at some point it could be almost too many homes. And so I kind of wonder, are builders going to start pulling back in what they're putting out in the market if inventory starts increasing, which it could as we go into the fall and the spring. But there are some charts that I've seen, I don't have them here, But it's an interesting place to be because we're seeing this inventory increase and we're seeing housing starts being right where they need to be, just really, really strong in some ways. But then you end up looking at Toronto or Ontario's numbers and they're really far gone. Like condo starts are really, 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 really low. But again, it's because their inventory has shot through the roof and they're sitting at like crazy numbers for what the inventory is inside of Toronto. And so you can't look at these headlines and just say, oh, well, the Canadian real estate market is this, because that's not the case. You can't even look at markets and just say Calgary real estate market is XYZ, because that's not the case. Because the Northwest zone is completely different than the East zone. They are. And so you have to understand your market, and even your product type inside of your neighborhood is going to be different than a neighborhood beside it. Last month, we talked about 2 neighborhoods side by side where one was like the fastest moving and one was one of the slowest moving. And they're literally right across Crowchild Trail from each other. And so it's just one of those things you have to understand. And if you want to understand more of that, you definitely need to reach out to us. We have a great tool called HomeBeat that allows you to keep up with what the market is doing for your product type. And so that's something you want to consider. The other thing that we are seeing happening, if all of this is good info, this info is really, really important. What is happening is the percentage of off-market homes compared to what is selling. And this is something we started tracking about a year and a bit ago. The reason is all of a sudden we were like, wow, there's a lot of homes going off the market who aren't selling for the price that they're hoping. And so it's actually brought some really interesting insights into what the market's doing. Because right now, we are sitting at 88% of all the homes that went off the market was 88% of all the sales, okay? So if there was 100 sales, there was 88 homes that did not sell and they got taken off the market at the exact same time during the same month. So we are at 88%. And one time, was at Christmas, last year we saw 97%. And the last 3 months, we've seen 76%, 87%, and 88%. So what does that tell me? That tells me that there are still a lot of sellers who are hoping for past pricing, who are not understanding and being aware of what the market conditions are doing. Now, they're taking those homes off the market. They might relist them. They might put them to rentals. Now, if you watch the rental rates, this isn't going to be an easy task for everybody. One of the fastest growing segments of our market is purpose-built rentals that are coming to our market. Drive around any of kind of inner city and you're gonna see all of a sudden buildings pop up, 8 plexes, 12 plexes. And are those going on the market for sale? No, many of them are just rentals. University District, a whole building, just rentals. Go down 16th Ave, kind of by Crowchild there. There's some buildings that are just rentals. I mean, anywhere. You go around the city and pretty much anywhere, there's a massive amount of rental purpose buildings being built. So what's gonna happen is if you can't afford to sell your property or you're wanting to sell your property and you want this price, but okay, you know what? I'm gonna wait for the market to catch up. I'm gonna wait a couple years. I'm gonna rent my place out. You can do that, but be aware that rental market is tightening. Vacancy rate is rising. And so the rental rate that you're hoping to get to cover the cost of your mortgage might not be the case. And where is this happening the most? Well, in the Northeast, 155% of off-market properties compared to sales. So there was only, the number's hard to read. I'm gonna say 214, I think, sales, and 339 properties went off the market and didn't sell. That's a lot. The city center is at 100%. So right around 350 or 360-ish, right there. So it's pretty crazy. The North Zone is another one sitting at basically 100%, 235 sales and 235 places that could not sell, and they took it off the market. But when you look at the Northwest, the South, Southeast, and the West, you're sitting anywhere from the lowest of 63% up to the highest in the West at 72%. Now, I don't know what a normal number should be. I'm just kind of sharing this because It just shows where in the areas are people overpricing their properties and where could we start seeing more rentals and harder places to have rental properties, because vacancy rates could actually go up and prices could go down. So if you're planning on renting, some of these areas might be really good to consider renting in. And now property types, the full duplex, 150%, but there's literally nothing there. So I'm not gonna even talk about that one anymore. But apartments is 121%. You had 448 sales and 546 went off the market last month. Detached homes was 78%. And then it was townhomes is probably the next highest behind apartments. And they're at 88%. And then semi-detached, like I already said, this is one of those faster moving products right now, specifically under 600,000, but they only had 60% homes that went off the market compared to what sold. So I just threw a ton of information at you guys, and I hope it is helpful, and I hope that you find this very, very insightful. You want more details, you want more information, jump into the description, grab our monthly report that we put together for this month. It's custom, we put it together. Grab that, and if you like this video, I know you're gonna like this one, so we'll see you in there as well.